Imagine a single flame in the dark. It wavers gently, glowing gold at its centre, deepening to orange at the edges, then fading into smoke that curls upward and vanishes into night. Around it, shadows soften. The air is touched with the faint smell of melted wax. The candle does not roar like a fire nor dazzle like the sun. Instead, it offers quiet, steady light. Just enough to see, just enough to feel safe. For us today, candles are luxuries. Birthday celebrations, scented gifts, moments of romance, prayer or meditation. Yet for most of human history, a candle was survival. It meant being able to work after sunset, to walk without stumbling, to pray in the night, to guard against fear when darkness pressed close. A simple wick and flame carried power that once shaped whole ways of life. Tonight, we will follow the candle's journey. From its earliest forms in ancient temples and homes, through the wax-filled workshops of medieval chandlers, into the factories of the industrial age, and finally into the scented boutiques and quiet rituals of our own time. The story of candles is the story of light, light carried in fragile wax, fragile flame, fragile moments, yet enduring across thousands of years. The earliest candles were not candles as we know them. They were rushlights, reeds or rushes dipped in animal fat, set alight to burn for a short time. Imagine one of these in a small clay-walled home, a thin stalk burning unevenly, sputtering with smoke, giving just enough glow to light a meal or a prayer. The smell was pungent, the flame short-lived, but it kept darkness at bay. In Egypt, around 3000 BCE, rushlights and oil lamps were used side by side. Temples glowed with steady flames, thought to connect mortals with the divine. Light was sacred, not only for seeing but for symbolizing life itself. In burial rituals, lamps and candles were placed with the dead, guiding their souls into eternity. The Romans made one of the earliest true candles, tallow rendered from animal fat, poured into moulds around a reed or papyrus wick. These candles burned longer than rushlights, and soldiers carried them on campaigns, for they could be lit in places too rough for oil lamps. Picture a Roman soldier on the frontier, far from marble baths and bustling markets, crouched in his tent as a small tallow candle flickered, casting shadows on his armour. That little flame gave warmth, light, and perhaps a sense of home. Far to the east, other traditions formed. In China, around the Han Dynasty, candles were made from whale fat, with wicks of rolled rice paper. These were sturdier, longer burning, and sometimes scented with herbs. In India, butter lamps and candles made from clarified butter, ghee, filled temples with golden light. Priests lit them as offerings, their flames representing purity and devotion. Everywhere the candle carried not only function but meaning. In temples and shrines, candles symbolized the eternal, the sacred. In humble homes, they stood for safety and survival. And though the materials differed, fat, wax, butter, oil, the principle was the same. A wick held upright in fuel, burning slowly to bring light into darkness. The candle was already more than a tool. It was a companion, a protector, and a messenger of meaning. It connected people not only to one another, gathered around its light, but to the divine, imagined in its glow. Though oil lamps were common across the ancient world, candles slowly carved out their own place. They were portable, durable, and useful in ways lamps were not. In Rome, tallow candles became the light of the ordinary person. Made from animal fat, they burned with a smoky odour, but they were cheap and they worked. Roman festivals made use of candles too. During Saturnalia, families lit small candles and offered them to Saturn, the god of time and harvest. The flames symbolized the renewal of the sun, a promise that even in the dark of winter light would return. Candles were thus not only practical but woven into the very rhythm of Roman ritual. China developed candles differently. Instead of olive oil or tallow, they often used whale fat or seed oils, with wicks of twisted rice paper. These candles were sturdier than Roman ones, often lasting longer, and in wealthy households they were perfumed with herbs. Imagine a lacquered Chinese chamber lit not by torches or oil, but by tall, slow-burning candles, their flames flickering against silk screens. In India, candles took the form of butter lamps, simple clay bowls filled with clarified butter, ghee, burned with short golden flames. In temples, rows upon rows of lamps lined altars, each flame an offering, a prayer, a wish sent upward on a thread of smoke. To light a lamp was to connect earth to the heavens, the physical to the spiritual. Other cultures had their own variations. In the Middle East, beeswax was discovered early as a cleaner, brighter fuel. Where tallow smoked and smelled, beeswax burned sweet and steady. But it was rare and costly, reserved for temples and the wealthy. Already a hierarchy was forming. Candles of fat for the many, candles of wax for the few. Through these civilizations, candles became both practical and symbolic. They guided soldiers through darkness, illuminated scholars at their scrolls, and filled sacred halls with shimmering light. Yet their meaning went deeper. Candles were timekeepers. To burn a candle was to measure hours in wax, to watch the steady consumption of matter into light. In a world before clocks, candles told the passing of time itself. The flame was never just fire, it was hope, safety, ritual and rhythm, small enough to fit in a hand, but powerful enough to shape how people lived in the dark. In medieval Europe, the candle became an essential part of daily and spiritual life. Darkness fell early in the evenings, and without candles, most homes would have been swallowed in shadow. Yet not all candles were created equal. For ordinary people, candles were made from tallow, rendered animal fat. These burned with a greasy smoke and a strong smell, but they were cheap and could be made at home or bought from local chandlers. Picture a peasant's cottage. A simple wooden table, rushes on the floor, and a tallow candle sputtering in the draught, filling the air with a faintly sour scent. It gave just enough light to eat, mend clothes, or tell stories by the fire. For the wealthy and for the church, however, a different flame burned. Beeswax candles glowed in cathedrals and noble halls. Unlike tallow, beeswax burned clean and sweet, with little smoke and a pleasant honeyed scent. To walk into a medieval cathedral was to step into a world of shimmering gold, light pouring through stained glass by day, and by night, hundreds of beeswax candles reflecting off stone pillars and altars. The flickering flames were more than illumination. They were symbols of purity and prayer, offerings of light in service to God. By the 12th century, the making of candles had grown into a profession. Chandlers' guilds formed in cities across Europe, regulating the quality and trade of candles. Chandlers sold not only household candles, but also ceremonial ones for churches, courts, and public feasts. Their workshops smelled of boiling fat or wax, and moulds lined their benches. In some places, laws even forbade mixing tallow with beeswax, preserving the purity of wax for the church. Candles also marked life's milestones. They were lit at baptisms, weddings, and funerals. They guided night processions and festivals. During winter feasts, households might burn candles as symbols of hope for the return of the sun. In monasteries, candles lit the hours of prayer, measured by their slow, steady burning. But for most of medieval Europe, candles remained precious. A peasant family might use only a few tallow candles each winter, relying mostly on the fire for light. To burn a candle was to consume something costly. Even so, that little flame transformed night into something bearable, if only for a while. By the close of the Middle Ages, candles had become both a necessity and a symbol of wealth, faith, and time itself. From smoky cottages to soaring cathedrals, they shaped the rhythm of nights and the meaning of light. By the 18th century, the world was changing, and with it the humble candle. What had once been handmade in cottages and workshops began to pass into the hands of science and industry. One breakthrough came with stearin, a hard, clean-burning substance derived from animal fats. Unlike tallow, Stearin produced little smoke and held its shape better in warm weather. In the early 19th century, French chemists developed processes to separate stearic acid from fats, making candles that were brighter, longer lasting, and more reliable. Another transformation arrived with paraffin wax discovered in the mid-1800s. Derived from petroleum, paraffin was inexpensive, plentiful, and burned cleanly with little odour. Combined with stearin, it became the foundation of modern candle production. Suddenly, candles could be made in huge quantities, sold cheaply, and used widely without the drawbacks of smoke and smell. Factories emerged, filled with moulds, vats, and machines. Imagine rows of metal moulds, each filled with molten wax, cooling into neat, uniform candles. Workers poured, trimmed, and packed them into boxes, ready to ship across continents. The chandler's small workshop gave way to industrial production, and candles became available to all. Yet just as candles reached new heights of availability, their role began to shift. Gaslight and later electric light spread through cities, casting steady, bright illumination that no candle could rival. Candles were no longer essential for daily life. Streets, homes, and factories glowed with new technology. The candle, once a necessity, seemed destined for obsolescence. But instead of disappearing, candles transformed. Freed from the burden of survival, they became symbols and luxuries. They marked ceremonies and traditions, the candles of Advent, Hanukkah, vigils and processions. They added warmth to tables, romance to evenings, solemnity to rituals. A single candle lit in silence could still carry more weight than 100 electric bulbs. In revolutions and protests, candles became a language of resistance. A line of flames held aloft spoke of unity, remembrance, and hope. To light a candle was to make a statement that went beyond utility. The industrial age had given candles new materials and mass production, but it had also changed their meaning. No longer the backbone of the light, candles became the keepers of tradition and emotion, illuminating not only the physical world but the symbolic one. In our world of electric bulbs, neon signs, and glowing screens, the candle might seem obsolete, and yet it endures, not as a tool of survival, but as a companion to mood, memory, and meaning. Walk into a modern home, and candles may appear in many forms. A jar of scented wax on the coffee table, a tall taper on the dining table, tea lights glowing around a bath. These flames are not needed to light the room. Electricity does that. Instead, they add atmosphere, intimacy, and calm. A candle's flicker, so fragile, feels more alive than any bulb. Candles have also become markers of celebration. Birthday cakes are crowned with them, each flame waiting to be blown out with a wish. In churches, synagogues, and temples, candles remain as symbols of devotion, remembrance, or prayer. At vigils, rows of handheld flames shimmer as acts of solidarity. Across cultures, candles have shifted from necessity to symbol, and in that shift they gained new life. The market for candles has flourished. Entire industries now create candles as luxuries, poured into glass jars, swirled with colours, infused with perfumes from lavender to sandalwood. A candle is not just wax and wick. It is relaxation in a jar, an ornament for a home, a gift for comfort. Yet candles also continue their role as guardians of tradition. In religious ceremonies they represent purity, presence, and eternity. In remembrance events, they keep alive the flame of memory. In festivals like Diwali, the festival of lights, candles and lamps transform entire neighbourhoods into oceans of brightness, driving away darkness, both physical and spiritual. Even in an age where electricity is everywhere, a power outage reminds us of the candle's old role. When the lights go out, we strike a match and return to that small flame, grateful once more for its quiet glow. The candle is humble, yet dependable, its simplicity unchanged for thousands of years. Today candles sit at the intersection of old and new. They are both product and symbol, luxury and necessity, everyday object and eternal companion. To watch one burn is to see time move, matter dissolve, and light endure. In their gentle flames the past and present meet. And so our journey with candles draws to a close, the way a wick slowly shortens as its wax melts away. From the first rushlights dipped in animal fat to beeswax glowing in medieval cathedrals, from paraffin poured in industrial moulds to scented jars lining modern shelves, the candle has never been only about light. It has been survival in a darkened home, devotion in a temple, time measured in slow-burning hours. It has been a symbol of purity, of memory, of protest, of celebration. The candle is both humble and profound, a small thread of fire balanced on wax able to transform a room, a ritual, a moment. Imagine again the flame. Watch it flicker, lean, then steady itself. It breathes as though alive. Around it shadows shift and soften. A candle does not overwhelm the dark. It coexists with it, gently holding it back, creating just enough glow for comfort. This is why we still reach for candles, even in an age of electric brilliance. Their light feels human, intimate, fragile, but enduring. As you drift toward rest, think of the countless generations who fell asleep by candlelight, soldiers on campaign, scholars at their desks, children listening to stories, monks at prayer. Each flame was a bridge between day and night, safety and mystery, the known and the unknown. Tonight, you're part of that same lineage. The light you imagine in your mind's eye is the same that flickered in Roman tents, in medieval churches, in homes without electricity. The candle connects you across centuries, across cultures, across lives. So let the image of that flame carry you into sleep, steady, warm, and eternal. The wax melts, the wick glows, the shadows soften, and you rest, surrounded by a light as old as history itself. Good night.